For coastal residents of Florida, Pearl Harbor literally brought war to their backyard. A new exhibit at the Beaches Museum aims to capture how that era changed the physical and cultural landscape of the First Coast. Here to tell us about it is Susan Gold. She is the museum's archives and collections manager. Good morning, Susan.
Good morning.
We are also joined by Jacksonville Beach Mayor Chris Hoffman, who is the museum's executive director. Good morning, Chris.
Good morning, Anne.
So, this exhibit covers actually kind of the impact of both world wars on the coastline of Florida.
It covers all the way from the 1500s all the way up to 2007.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
Yeah.
I want to start, if it's okay, later with kind of after
Mhm.
Pearl Harbor, because this was something that dramatically turned a lot of this part of the state into kind of an armed camp. Can you describe the metamorphosis? What happened to some of the public buildings? What happened to some of the
Sure.
establishments?
Yeah, absolutely. So the beaches area ended up getting taken over. Honestly, I mean, we started with Mayport. We started getting Mayport Naval Station. We ended up with Camp Atlantic Beach. We also um, ended up getting the U.S. Coast Guard patrolling the beaches as well. So we had lots of different military installations. Casa Marina ended up being used for military housing as well. So we had a
That was
lot
a
of
hotel at the time?
uh huh
Okay.
yeah.
And so the military kind of, I guess, took over these places and just said they're going to become. Uh,
Yeah, so, out at Mayport, eminent domain was used to take over a lot of people's land, including Elizabeth Stark, who had a, lovely resort at the time, and so it just sort of became government land.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so there's barracks emerging, there's military bases, being created. One of the people that is helping to shape this discussion of the World War history on Florida's first coast is a guy named Elliot Kleinberg, who's going
Mhm,
to be part of this, educational effort. He's going to be speaking
mhm.
at the museum. So tell us a little bit about, why you're bringing him in, what his area of expertise is.
So, one of the things that we try to do when we have our temporary exhibits in place is have some programming that is associated with that. So, with this particular exhibit, we received some grant funding through Florida Humanities, and that allows us to go out and seek real experts in areas that maybe they live outside. We have wonderful experts here in Jacksonville, and we always like to use them when we can. But Elliot Kleinberg was one that was a Florida Humanities speaker specifically on World War II. And so we're going to be bringing him into at the Beaches Museum on August 7th. So we're excited to have him as a speaker, as well as we're going to be having a cemetery tour, which is not as spooky as it sounds, but it's going to be a walking tour of the Warren H. Smith Cemetery in Jacksonville Beach that we're going to be going around through some of the veterans, some of the more prominent veterans that are buried there. And that's going to be the weekend right before Veterans Day. So we try to have not just the exhibit on the walls, but some active programming for our members and our visitors and our residents to really engage with the topic.
And Elliot Kleinberg is, he worked for 50 years at the Palm Beach Post. He's written a number of columns, a number of books, and he really is, kind of steeped in this history of Florida.
Exactly. And we're really excited to bring that expertise right to Jacksonville Beach, to the Beaches Museum.
So, Susan, I want to ask you about, the role that offshore battle was happening.
Mhm.
What impact that was having on this part of Florida, because there were a number of boats that were targeted by German U-boats. It was a commercial shipping channel that was actually chosen sort of by Hitler
Mhm.
as a target.
Yeah, absolutely. It was called Operation Drumbeat, was sort of the thing that was happening at the time. We had U-boats coming over from Europe. They left from Paris, and they came over to kind of make a big noise, essentially against the coast of America. We had one ship was destroyed off the Jacksonville Beach Pier. So we had bright lights going on the Jacksonville Beach Pier. There was not a blackout order that was being enforced at the time. So the bright lights at the pier allowed the U-boat to see the SS Gulf America at the time, and they torpedoed it and then came around and used tracer bullets to kind of take it to sink that ship. So
You have, I think, an extraordinary exhibit too at the museum of this telegram that was sent after that ship was torpedoed, basically saying, "Don't y'all think maybe you should turn off the lights,
Mhm.
at the amusement park,
Yeah.
because by illuminating the coast, you essentially caused." this ship to be visible and sunk?
Yes. Yes. So that is actually from the State Archives of Florida. That's going to be visible in this exhibit. We also, in this exhibit, have for the first time some artifacts from the wreck of the Gulf of America that were brought up by some divers.
Yeah.
So that's an exciting thing to also see in this
And
one.
I think that event was a real wake up call for the beach's residents because, again, they weren't really enforcing the
Mm-mm.
blackouts and the war was something that was kind of further away from them. So we have a lot of firsthand accounts of people that actually witnessed it. Certainly, we're losing some of those firsthand accounts as the years go by, but we've been very happy to be able to capture some of those in our archives and collections. But it was festive. It was an amusement park. There was a dance hall on the pier. Everybody, I think it was a Saturday night. Everyone was
Mhm.
out having a great time. And all of a sudden, it was an oil tanker. It lit the sky on fire. And I think it really, really very quickly brought World War II home to the First Coast beaches
Yeah, I
areas.
mean, there's, descriptions of, these U-boat bombings that led to, people who'd been on the ship coming ashore in lifeboats covered in oil,
Mhm.
burns, broken bones, just in
Yeah.
terrible condition. And that's coming up on the coastline, that really does change perceptions of
Mhm.
peril and kind of everybody's experience of that war.
Absolutely. I mean, children were out playing, and still on the boardwalk that night, and we have that's at least three of the firsthand accounts that we have in the collection are from children between ages 10 and 16, right? So that's the memories that we have that are still in the collection.
And it was such a prominent event that there is a historic marker out on the
Mhm.
boardwalk now near the pier, as well as a memorial to those that were lost on the SS Gulf America in
Mhm.
Jacksonville Beach's Memorial Park.
And I think in addition to that ship that sunk, I mean, a lot of people don't realize, but there's kind of these skeletons of sunken vessels
Mhm.
along the coastline that are all relics
Mhm.
of World War II.
Yeah, we have a map in the exhibit that shows all of the different boats that were sunk as well on
So
the coast.
as the ship channel is being attacked, there are these ways that people on shore are experiencing it. This blackout, becomes a real focal point for coastal authorities. There's also, like, civilian involvement,
Mhm.
and it echoes something that happened during World War I, which is a really interesting story that you include in this exhibit about this woman who actually organized Girl Scouts. Will you
Mhm.
tell us a little bit about,
Yeah.
Elizabeth Stark?
Absolutely. So Elizabeth Stark came to the area in 1913, but when the war broke out, she decided, or I guess when we got involved in the war, she decided that the way that she was going to contribute was to start this Girl Scout troop, and she was going to patrol the beaches and make sure that there weren't any German spies that were going to come ashore and infiltrate her area. So she trained girls from ages 12 to 16 in horsemanship and marksmanship, and she armed and mounted a whole bunch of Girl Scouts, and they patrolled the beaches after school and on the weekends. And then the women of Mayport took over when they were in school.
And we have a picture that is part of your exhibit. It's from
Hmm.
the Beaches Museum collection, that shows the horseback, patrol.
Yeah,
And
that's
I
what
mean,
was.
it really is kind of extraordinary to imagine Girl Scouts, armed with rifles, riding horseback, and
Yeah.
sort of looking for suspicious people. And it kind of makes you wonder what the merit badge is for that. Um,
Right.
We
but
might respond differently today
yeah,
if we
Right.
were to see that on
Well,
Jacksonville
and would
Beach.
you arm I would not. I don't know if you know any 12-year-olds you would arm, but I no.
well, Elizabeth Stark was very involved, and in the end, you kind of alluded to this earlier, but it didn't end up serving her terribly
No.
well, did it?
No, she actually went to Washington and talked to people in government about how this area of the coastline would be really important in war and that they should defend it. And then they ended up coming back to her during World War II and said, "Oh, you're right.
That's a great
Actually,
idea.
yeah, that's a great idea. Actually, we're going to take this land by eminent domain and we're going to build a base on it. So thanks for that tip."
Her land.
Yeah, her land specifically, as well as others that lived in the Mayport area.
Yeah, so they
She wasn't the only one.
basically, took that, and that is now what
Hmm.
we know as Mayport Naval
And
Station.
her
Yeah.
estate was called Wonderwood, which you
Hmm.
may recognize because that's the name of the bridge
Hmm.
and the road that is over there near where her
And
estate
it
was.
sort of left her kind of destitute,
Yes.
right?
Yeah. Her husband was ill at the time. She could not fight that kind of land grab by the government. So she ended up in kind of a trailer area at the end of her life. not quite in the beautiful building that did become the Officers Club on the base. So,
I do want to just touch on another incident that happened that a lot of people are maybe a little bit more familiar with, which
mm,
is when these Nazi saboteurs
yeah.
came ashore in Ponte Vedra Beach, and it's an amazing story.
Yes, Operation Pastorius was they had two they had two groups of boats that landed on the east coast of the United States. They came ashore from a U-boat on a little raft, and four of them came ashore in Long Island. Four came ashore in Ponte Vedra, and then they were supposed to meet up in the middle, and they were going to bomb sort of railways and roadways and different war production facilities, and sort of essentially just terror attacks was the idea. So they didn't actually end up getting to do that. They ended up getting caught because their leader of the mission reported into the FBI about them.
Turned them in.
Mm-hmm.
But they came
Exactly.
ashore, I mean, with a lot of aims and
Yeah.
missions, but not a lot of gear or equipment.
No, they buried some explosives, some TNT in the dunes of Ponte Vedra, and then they left them there. So I'm not clear on exactly the process of how they were going to get back down. They were supposed to meet up in Cincinnati, like near Cincinnati, and then they were supposed to come all the way back down to Ponte Vedra to get the stuff. I'm not sure who planned this, but this one wasn't. I don't think the best executed. The best executed mission.
They were, though, I mean, they did, there's now a historic marker, is that right?
Mhm.
Kind of
Mhm.
outside is it at the Ponte Vedra
It's at the
Club?
Ponte Vedra Club.
Yeah.
It was further down the beach, closer to the actual location, but it kept getting kind of vandalized or stolen, so they moved it to a little more secure location. But
Uh,
it is there to mark the area where they
and
came ashore.
and so obviously there's many ways that these two world wars kind of shaped the coastline.
Mhm.
And we even see, Camp Landing, which was named after one of the, I think, generals in the battle, um, is now being looked at as kind of a very current detention center.
Mm.
Previously served as a POW camp, though, and so there's many ways that those wars kind of impacted not just the beaches, but all of Florida. So this exhibit, Chris, is called Beachfront Homefront, and I guess it kicks off.
It's going
Oh,
to open next Friday. We
okay.
always do an opening reception, so it'll be at the Beaches Museum from 6 to 8. So it'll be everyone's first look at the exhibit, although it will continue to be open until just past Veterans Day. So we want to have a good long time for our visitors and our community to come and see the exhibit. We're open 6 days a week, Tuesday through Sunday, and the Beaches Museum is free. So we encourage people to come by, take a look, and learn about this. Just really, and these are just a few stories of just a really fascinating history. And I think arguably the biggest and longest lasting impact is Naval Station Mayport
Yeah.
on our beaches area as an employer, as the use of land and all that comes with that. So we continue to be involved in and even ongoing events globally.
All
here
right.
from
So
our own
next
beaches.
Friday, and then we should say the speaker Elliot Kleinberg is on August 7th, talking about war in paradise. Mayor Chris Hoffman, Susan Gold, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having
Appreciate
us.
it.